This show is brought to you by HostBaby.com, web hosting for musicians.
It's episode 40 of Music Marketing Monday, and this one is going to be something completely different. I'm thinking about calling it Bob Talks Billy Off the Ledge. That's right. Something with his music career is frustrating Billy Gryzak, and Bob is going to coach him through it, kind of like Dr. Phil for the music business. This is going to be a different one. Stay tuned. Here we go. Hey, Billy, have a seat on the couch. Lay down, relax. Let's have a little therapy session.
Information, inspiration, motivation for the modern musicpreneur.
Time to start your week right.
Here it comes, Music Marketing Monday, with your host, Bob Baker,
Mr. Buzz Factor,
and Billy Gryzak.
The Music Marketing Mind.
Ready? Are you sure?
Set.
Here it comes. Swing, baby.
Okay, so you want me to tell you about my mother? Well, wait, we're doing a podcast here, Bob. Darn it.
That's right.
This is Billy Gryzak, the totally frustrated, discombobulated.
We made up a new word. That's
exactly.
It works.
Anyway, I am the Music Marketing Mind. At least that's who I was yesterday. And over there with the pad and the pen and the cigar is...
Yeah, the cigar. Bob Baker, Mr. Buzz Factor, Guerrilla Music Marketing Handbook author, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but today I am turning all Dr. Phil on you. And this is an idea we just came up with. We did not plan this, as we don't plan any of our shows, I don't think. This is, can you believe it's episode 40, Billy?
40, man. 40. That is just unbelievable. You know, if I knew if this show was going to live so long, I would have taken better care of it.
Yeah, and when we were in the episode in our teens with our episodes, life was so carefree. We didn't realize how good we had it. 40 seems so far off in the distance, but here we are.
Wow.
So anyway, the idea from this came just yesterday. You posted something on Facebook that was you were expressing your frustration over a particular certain aspect of your music business life that is going to have a great effect financially on you potentially in the new year.
I wouldn't call it great, Bob.
Great. How about a grand? Maybe it was going to greatly affect your music career. Let's put it that way. And so, what I'd like to do here is sort of act as a coach. And so, I'm going to be having you explain what this frustration is, and then we're going to try to find some solutions here. And I also want to point out that I've recently had some conversations with people who were clarifying for me the difference between a consultant and a coach. And a consultant is admittedly what have done when I do this consulting work, and that's when people come to you for answers. They want to give me here's my situation, Bob. Now give me the step-by-step things I should do to market. But actually, I'm very drawn to this idea of coaching, and where a coach, like a life coach or a business coach, doesn't really give you the answers or the step-by-step. By asking you questions, they get you to reveal to yourself what the problem is, and also to come up with the solution. So I may suggest some things, but I'm going to be trying to play this new role of coach with you. Are you good with that, Billy?
Yes, Dr. Bob. I mean, Coach Bob.
Dr. Bob. And I'm not a coach, like I'm not wearing a jersey. We're not going to be running laps or anything. So if that's all good, let's start off by clearly identifying what the problem or the challenge is. And so why don't you explain to the good people what you posted on Facebook and why. Yeah, just go ahead and let it out. Why
first of all, for those of you that don't know, and I'm presuming that a lot of you do know, that a lot of my work with trying to help and support and create an environment for musicians to congregate and share ideas and things like that is pretty much Facebook driven. Okay, I created a group called the Music Marketing Mind on Facebook, and it's a free group. And basically, I don't know how many members we have now. 700, 800, 1,000, whatever. Yeah. and it's super active where everybody supports each other. We talk about everything from that you can imagine, from marketing to good gigs, to bad gigs, to guitar strings, whatever. And then I was get on the phone and doing email and stuff recently to try and get some of my summer in shape. Oh, my summer shows. Believe it or not, guys, if you're not booking your summer shows now, you might be not working in the summer. All right, depending upon what type of gigs you do.
Right.
Like, for instance, my libraries, most of them are all booked up for the summer already. Most of the fairs and festivals are done by January. So you gotta think of that stuff. So,
but I think what you were saying is both of us, I think, are generally optimistic people. We try to give a positive vibe to the musicians that we mentor, whether it's the podcast or your Facebook group. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and that's kind of a problem for me right now. Because here's the deal. And this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes I wonder, as the leader of the tribe of music marketing mind people, the minds as we call them, should I be telling people what's not going right in my life, or should I be keeping that big happy face on? I wrestle with that. In fact, so much, I actually started a private group that's a group that has a fee, and it's very upfront about this is not necessarily going to be all happy. It's very transparent, and what we say in the group stays in the group. And I have a tendency to really let it loose there, and it's like therapy, and that's great. But I kind of went public with this one because I thought it was interesting, and I went to see what other people were going through. So basically, here's my story in a nutshell. I've been blessed actually to find steady employment as a musician, and one of the ways that I do that is by having recurring gigs, like annual gigs or monthly gigs or even weekly gigs, and sometimes. Okay. And, for instance, one thing that I do is I do these festivals and different types of events that are annual, like conventions or, what do you call them? Gatherings of different types. Okay. So there's these shows that I do, and I've been doing some of them for 10 years. I've been doing some of them for like 4 or 5 years. So usually at the end of a performance that year, if they're happy with what I do, they say, we will see you again next year. Let's shake hands, and you're booked, and give me a call, at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, and we'll do the contracts. Well, that's what I've been doing in this case, for 5 years with these particular shows. And what happened was I called or sent emails. I think I sent emails to say, hey, just wanted to find out what the final dates were. And something I don't usually do, and this probably is what triggered this whole thing, but for 5 years I've been doing these shows for the same rate. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, it's not cheap. I'll be honest with you. I mean, we're charging quite a bit of money, but there's this thing called cost of living. There's this thing called gasoline. There's this thing called rooms. And I don't think it hurts to, go. I mean, other people have jobs, right? And they get a cost of living, it goes up. At least I hope it does. That's what I heard it does. I've never had a real job for any length of time other than being in music. That's my real job.
Cost of living increases.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. So the thing is, this year I decided to say, hey, great. Thanks for having me back. What's the date, by the way? Can we get a little extra money? It's been 5 years. And in every case, I don't know what happened, man.
Every case.
Okay. That I did this in this week. It's been like this week, whatever week this is, when I called, emailed, I said, we're good for this year. Thank you. I'm going to send the contract out now. Can we get a little extra money? Maybe. And all of them basically said no. Which is fine, it doesn't, this is where my frustration came in. People always told me it doesn't hurt to ask. Well, in this case, it hurt a lot because I asked and then they said no. And I said, okay, no problem. What are the dates that you want me for? And then they emailed me back and said basically, well, we talked it over, and we've decided that we need to cut our budgets, and we're going to cut our budgets from the entertainment portion of our event, which means we're not going to use you anymore. Thank you so much for the last 5 years.
Wow. So this is not like an isolated incident. One of them came back. You had multiple people that you sent this to had the same. It's not like they were talking to each other and comparing notes. They all, I mean, in waves, it came with the same type of response.
Yeah. And then there's another, then I do libraries, and libraries are done in tours. And so let's say I'll go to Nebraska for a week. I'll go to Louisiana for a week. I'll go to Alabama for a week, right? And you got to think, if I'm going to these places for a week, even if I'm charging a really reasonable fee, and in these cases I'm charging a really, really reasonable fee and waiving my travel expenses because they're giving me a block of shows, all these places said, great. We're going to have you next year. We're going to have you next year. And I did a handshake deal. And this might be something to talk about, Bob, because my hand hurts now because,
slapping yourself in the forehead.
Yeah. It's like, this is the hand I shook with, and the thing is, they said, we'll see you next year. We'll see you next year. We'll see you next year. Then I go, okay, what's our date? So like, oh, well, we decided not to do it this year. And I had that happen about 3 times. So, I mean, to be brutally honest, in the last week, I've lost, I don't know. I wrote it down here somewhere. A lot of money, like around $20,000.
Tens of thousands of dollars. And there's also in your Facebook post, there was a historical perspective to this that I've heard many times, been aware of. We haven't really addressed it on the show, but let's talk about, like you have a long family history. Your grandfather or parents or whatever were musicians. Your parents were. And so what is the basic pay for live musicians, historically speaking, with your family and elsewhere?
It's funny. My grandfather was a big band leader, and he was full-time until he got married, and then he decided to go part-time and have like a regular job. But he never quit playing and always made money. But my dad actually got in a really good show band, and back in the 60s, the 1960s, that band was pulling in anywhere between like $2,000 to $5,000 a week in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 70s, and then I came along. I'm the 3rd generation musician. And then, the salaries in the 80s, I was lucky enough to have a, full-time, 6-night a week traveling band in the 80s. And we were doing like $2,000 to $3,000. But if you notice, the money went down. The decades have passed, and instead of the money going up, cost of living and all that stuff, the amount of money the bands got paid has gone down. And now my son, who's the 4th generation, he's like talking, he goes out and busks, he goes out and stands on street corners and with his friends and plays for tips, which is great. But what the heck's happening here with I thought each generation is supposed to better itself, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's,
Yeah, my really active clubbing, playing days or venue playing days and bars was probably the 80s. I mean, I'd done it throughout every decade, but that was the heavy, when I was in my 20s. And I remember, when you were a new band or up and coming, you either played for the door or you got paid maybe in the $300 to $500 range. And here decades later, it's either has not gone up or it's gone down.
Yeah, now. The thing is this, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. I mean, when you approach a venue, let's say you're a solo artist, okay? And let's say you're on the, I don't know what the lower end, the higher end is around the country, but I know a lot of solo artists that get like $150 for like, 2 or 3 hours, okay? Mm-hmm. Now you could say, well, he's making $50 an hour. That's more than, almost anybody makes. It's $50 an hour. It's a lot of money, but it's not really $50 an hour when you figure in how long he was driving to the gigs, setting up, booking the gigs, rehearsing for the gigs. You know the story, Bob. And when you actually figure it out, you're down to making like $1.33 an hour, in the music business sometimes. Now,
sure.
Again, I don't want to go out there and say the music business sucks, nobody's making money, because that's not true. I mean, it's not like I'm destitute, I'm not doing gigs. Mm-hmm. But this has just really thrown me for a loop. And the problem was, maybe it's the fact that I didn't do contracts immediately when they said, let's do it, because I waited, 6-8 months, 6 months to do a contract, and they had a lot of time to think about it in the meantime. And here I thought I had the gigs, it's possible. So anyway.
So we pretty much